everyone. We're excited to have you join us for another Demand Gen Summit session. I am Jenny. I'm the marketing manager over at Signals, and I'm joined with the fantastic Alexine Mudawar, who was recently recognized by Salesforce as one of the top 18 sales influencers, as well as Crunchbase as one of the 2023's influential women in sales. Alexine, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. Doing well.
Great. So you have a lot of really great insights into like the sales universe. But before we really jump into it, can you just give everyone a little bit background on your journey and your professional background?
Absolutely. As mentioned, my name is Alexine Mudawar. I am CEO of a company called Women in Sales. I started my sales career just over 10 years ago and started doing enterprise sales with startups and then stayed with startups that entire time and now running my own. So it's been a very exciting journey with a lot of cold calls along the way. And I'm really excited to dig into some of this more.
Awesome. And I don't know if everyone knows, but could you just share a little bit about your mission of Women in Sales and how that organization has evolved?
Absolutely. So Women in Sales has been around for over 2 years, and the focus is really on helping, of course, bring women into the field of sales, but also keep them here and help them get promoted ultimately. So we focus a lot on elevating and empowering women within the field of sales. And we do a lot in the way of different webinars, networking opportunities. Just really anything that's going to help our members and the folks that are involved in the community level up to the next step in their career. And all of our memberships today are free. So you can literally hop in our Slack community at any time and start engaging with tons of incredible women in the field of sales.
Oh, that's really awesome. I didn't know you guys had a Slack channel.
Oh, yes.
That's great. I'm going to have to go join it after this. So what, as like the sales leader, what have you found like where the industry is really evolving in the coming years?
Yeah, so I think we're at a really interesting inflection point where we're seeing a lot of what I would call like the old ways of sales starting to dissipate and become less effective. So we know that email messaging and a lot of the prospecting techniques that worked even a couple years ago are no longer sticking the same way they were. And so that means that all of us as sales professionals will have to level up in order to kind of stay with the industry and stay with where things are headed. So I think a lot of that is going to look like personalization, relevancy, this really like catering a lot of that messaging to the individual that you're reaching out to, focusing more on long-term high impact relationships versus kind of short-term wins and gains. A lot of these principles have existed in sales, and the people who are really good sellers have been already doing this for many years, but now with the shift and with the economy and with things that are happening, it's going to force all of us as sellers to have to move in that direction as well.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. We've definitely seen that as well. So my next question really is, I know with Women in Sales, you guys are really focused on building a community as well as maintaining partnerships. What have you found are some key principles to keep in mind when building those partnerships to really help build some demand?
Yeah, so I run our entire partnerships program. I do have a counterpart who helps with making some of those early introductions as well, but I'm on partnership calls daily now. And a lot of the keys to success are first and foremost identifying companies where you have really similar values. And so it's tough. Like the honest answer is it's tough. I do a lot of like research. I go through their social media feed. I look at their website. I see what kinds of like employee resource groups they have or what kind of involvement they have in their communities. And it's really hard to kind of like identify those things, but I do try as much as possible, just like I would in any other sales cycle, to do some evaluation. I'm really big on having discovery conversations. Most, if not all of our partners went through multiple discovery conversations with our team to ensure, they were going to be a good fit for us. We wanted to make sure that the package that we put together for our partnership made sense for both sides, that it was something that was going to be valuable for both parties. And so we did a lot of work behind the scenes and with those partners to co-create and craft things that are going to help them long-term ultimately see the results they want and help our team, of course, continue to scale and level up our community at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it also really ties into what you were saying before about the evolution of sales and creating these tailored experiences for each account or partner.
Hmm.
That's really great. Um, is there ever challenges that you come across when balancing like the partner's needs versus what you guys need?
Yeah, I think it's always a situation of, we have a certain number of kind of tasks and offerings that need to go out for our partners. So like those need to happen. They need to happen on a certain cadence and at a certain
Mhm.
volume. So those are things that just need to take place. And then alongside that, we have our own initiatives, our own campaigns, our own webinars, our own events that also need to take place. So the biggest challenge I think is really just balancing time. Like time is our most finite resource. So just trying to figure out, how much time is available. Right now I'm really doubling down and looking through and building like a true like marketing content calendar. I got like several versions of content calendars from marketers who are so kind as to help me. And
Yeah.
really kind of like cleaning up and figuring out like what is the best way that we can manage everything that's on our books as well, because it's not just kind of co-creating content or events, it's also marketing that out. It's also putting together, the plan for those. So there's a lot of just administrative details that go on behind the scenes. And of course it's challenging, but we just had a partner event today with Lavender. It was just incredible. So it's really cool to see the rewarding kind of piece afterwards, after you go through all the logistics and the planning and setting everything up. So I find it to be really rewarding, but of course it's not without challenges.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then you mentioned a little bit like the really successful partnership with Lavender, but do you have any other specific examples of a successful partnership that really helped you guys out or where you saw like some growth?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm super biased, so I love all our partners. But one that comes to mind who I just talked to yesterday actually is Demand Base, who
Mm,
our partnership focuses a lot on content, and we put together a top 100, not really top 100, it was 100 powerful women in sales list last year. We are actually bringing it back this year. So I literally have an Excel sheet and I'm going one by one through LinkedIn and finding people and making some nominations this week. But I think of that team because, Justin Levy, who's our partnerships contact, he and I are always in contact via InMail or email. We're always working on some initiative. Their team is really good about hearing out ideas. So I'll randomly send something at like 1 a.m. and I'm like, this would be fun to work on. And
yeah.
so I think those are the really fun partnerships for me, where like a partner is willing to get creative, jump in the weeds with us, hear out an idea, execute on it. And then that one in particular has been really fun to watch because we put that list together hoping that it was something that would be really meaningful to all these women, and then come to see, even almost a year later, everybody still has it in their LinkedIn headline and like
Yeah.
they're sharing it out. It became an accolade that they added to their personal bios. So it's just really
Wow.
cool to like be on the other side of that and be like curating some of that in something that becomes a really big achievement for these people as well. So that's definitely one that comes to mind. But again, we love all our partners.
Yeah. No, I love that you mentioned like how far like it can actually spread when you have like a successful partnership. And I also really liked the idea of just being open to ideas and being creative and willing to like do the dirty work,
Hmm.
and looking for those kind of like qualities in those partnerships that you seek out. It's really
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. That collaboration piece is so critical. And I think that this is why discovery is so important. Like it's really important for me to figure out who is the contact on this partnership team. What is their personality going to be like? Are we people that can also collaborate really well together? Are
Mm.
they willing to work on these creative ideas? So I get really excited. We just announced a new partnership actually or we're about to tomorrow. So I think I won't be letting anything out too early here, but with Comsor. And, we're already thinking of all these creative ideas that we haven't even formally announced on social media. So I think about those relationships, and sometimes I'll meet their founders. It just depends on who the contact is at the company. But sometimes I'm working with the founder, CEO. Sometimes I'm
Mm.
working with marketing, sometimes with partnerships. But I do pay close attention to what that relationship is going to be like with those contacts as well, and how we're going to work together, because that's very critical to the success of a partnership long term.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Um, let me So we've kind of been focusing like on more of like the details, but I'd love to also like pivot to more big picture. What are you think are like some common mistakes that B2B companies fall into when trying to build partnerships? And how can these really be avoided?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm, in full disclosure, I'm very new to the partnerships world. Like
Okay.
this role as CEO has pushed me into the partnerships light, and now I'm probably
Mhm.
doing more partnerships work than most people I know. So I went very quickly in the course of basically a year from no experience to a lot of experience.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen is, I've seen companies where they just kind of like set up the partnership and then it just kind of sits, or they don't
Mhm.
like talk to their contacts anymore. Like nobody's staying in touch. Like they kind of lose sight of what the overall goal and objective is. So this is something like I'm paying close attention to is, potentially we're going to set up like more of a thorough cadence with our partners and like actually like have, some type of like high level, like quarterly get together. So I think things like that too, that are really important, but I definitely think there's a lot of opportunities that go that just fly under the radar to really get to know these partners better and work with them more closely.
Mhm.
I also think, the biggest pitfall I think is not understanding like values and like really digging into some of that information early on, because it's really easy to get misaligned, 6 months, a year down the road if you didn't start on the right foot. And that's why, my team and myself, we invest like so heavily on the front end of these, quote unquote deal cycles with potential partners to get to know them, to create that collaborative space, to set up the infrastructure. We have like privatized Slack channels with our partners even, and that's where we can have like a collaborative space in real time. And
Yeah.
I think all of those things are really critical to the long-term success. So if you skip those steps and just kind of like sign people and just for whatever and hope for the best, those partnerships tend to be the ones that aren't successful because you're not really aligned and you don't have a true partnership. You're just kind of two logos on a piece of paper.
Right. It made me think while you were talking that you kind of had this like really quick turnaround of where you were learning like partnerships, and you kind of mentioned that you did it like you had like this year of like really big growth and learning. What were the things that you found really helped to get you where you are now as far as starting partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to it. I think there were people that offered me a lot of really good advice and
Mhm.
resources to help me kind of ramp up and figure out what I was doing. Some people I did like trades with. I was like, "Hey, I'll like teach you something about sales, like help me understand
Yeah.
partnerships, help me understand like what I'm doing here." And then I think the other side was honestly like trial and error. Like we had one partnership that was like, struggling a little bit for a period of time. So I actually
Mhm.
went through and I was like, if this was a deal that I was working at a past company, how would I approach how would I approach this client, and how would I like get us back on the right track? And so like did a call and end up like moving through everything, really solid partnership today. And so
Yeah.
I think like almost following some of like what that sales skill set was and what helped me be successful as a seller has also been applicable to this partnership side. But also leaning on my network and like people who are really skilled and do have years of experience. And I also learned along the way too, there are a lot of like public facing resources that are available. Like people would send me like templates or things that their company used or
Mhm.
different documents and like Notion or whatever. And they would just like send me all these different things. And every one of those resources ended up being really valuable and helpful. So I think leaning on others as much as possible and making sure that you're, also helping them in return or offering something in return is so critical.
Yeah, I like that you brought up like using your past skills to really help kind of like retain partners, especially in like the world of demand gen. Like we can't forget like your current customers, your current partners, and you can't stop selling just because the deal closed. So I think
Mhm.
that's a really great point to bring up.
Yeah, and I think like going back to your early question about the future of kind of like sales and the industry as a whole, I think we're going to really see this recircling back to this focus on true customer relationships and long-term
Hmm.
relationships, because for so many years we've just been focusing on like transactional wins, get the logo, move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I've been part of those teams where we like, and it's even hard as the seller because you'll like work this logo for like 6 months and then you close it and then you never speak to them. Like it's so discombobulated and awkward. And then it's awkward
Hmm.
for your customer because they're like, Where'd she
Yeah.
go? And I'm like, I'm not allowed to talk to you again. So I
Yeah.
think there's just, I think what we're going to see across the board, whether it's, just, your standard, like your SDR, your AE, your partnerships team, whoever it is, we're going to see this focus again on these longer term relationships, because it is so much harder to land a logo and then lose it and then try to like re-land it a year or two later than it is just like take care of those customers in the meantime and keep the
Mhm.
relationship long term. So I do think, like, as we think about trends, that's going to be a big one, this focus on the lifetime of the customer versus just the logo.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, awesome. Well, that was about all the questions I had lined up for you, Alexine. I really want to thank you for being here. Are there any last notes that you would like to add before we wrap up?
Maybe I'll just do a quick plug of where to find folks. So would love to connect with anyone on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. Again, under Alexine Mudawar. We have a LinkedIn page under Women in Sales, under literally the name Women in Sales. And we just launched a little baby Instagram as well. So that's out there in the world too, and a Slack community. So would love to engage with anyone who's interested, and would love to see you either on LinkedIn or in the Slack community.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I'm so glad you were able to join us at this event.
Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate it.